Blind Faith, Blank Page, and Kyoko No-Show. 3 newly admitted to the School for the Wayward were troubled young girls, uniformly tailored. These 3, judged generic, each one interchangeable, had behavioral issues considered derangeable. Blind Faith saw it all, though her parents had taught her never to question. Now that's a good daughter. Respect for your elders, yes, anyone older, even their boarder, whose hand found her shoulder and told her how fetching her baby thin hair, and wanted to stroll with her out there somewhere. When finally the young girl did open her eyes, knew what was about, saw through this man's guise. "Oh, God, girl, you mistook. You must look away. It's not such a big deal," her mother would say. "Be still and don't make this a federal case. Or, did you invite this? That look on your face." Faith's retorts and protests were met with a strap. Her mother and dad won't put up with this crap. Off to boarding school, they left her behind. Blind Faith learned again what it meant to be blind. Blank Page was so clumsy a gawky preteen who stared into nothingness where nothing was seen. Her quiet demeanor, expressionless glances, she stayed home at night from junior high dances. Her mother, frustrated, said Page was unplugged. She made sure that Page was kept heavily drugged. Page seldom would speak, her voice strained and raspy. Then one time she blurted, "So, what is an Aspie?" Her parents and siblings dispelled her theatrics and looked in their phone book for some psychiatrics. Page's soft hazel eyes would tear up at the mention that she should go live in a house of detention. "But what can that mean?" the young girl would sputter as she tried to ask questions, her voice all aflutter. The station wagon loaded, 6 hours to the place. There Page was dropped off. She just stared into space. Kyoko No-Show was unplanned, she supposed. Her folks made her feel she'd be easily disposed. Through tight lips they'd argue the court's custody. "She's best off with you. She'll not stay with me." What had she done but be born to one set of 2 people who wanted a son? A tossed-away anime caricature, this girl cannot fathom. Why'd no one want her? Kyoko rolled up in her pink flannel robe and wished that she lived in her little snow globe. So magic, so peaceful, she'd give it a shake. The swirling white snow covered up her heartache. It blankets, it covers, protective, so cool. Then Kyoko was told about her new boarding school. No words on the trip there, Kyoko just wept. She held to her snow globe, and that's how she slept. The old institution, an abbey-like building, this school was foreboding and harshly unwielding. The girls grew accustomed to being together. Through common inertia school dealings they'd weather. But this was no home where families would nurture. They'd find their own place. Each girl was a searcher. Their planning began. They surveyed the landscape. With acknowledging nods, they agreed to escape. Tie bedsheets, then climb down the buttress 5th floor, or wait till it's late through the fruit cellar door. They knew this should happen. They must get away, for this very Sunday was called Parents' Day. And that day arrived. At dawn came the call. The cars filled the front lots and folks stormed the hall. And out of Faith's window, repeating her vespers, she saw both her parents with one who molests her. She reached for Blank Page, grabbed her blouse by the sleeve, and told her blank face, "It's time, we must leave." They tore down the back stairs where just the staff go and swept up their new friend. "Come with us, Kyoko!" They burst through the back doors and they stumbled and fell. In front of a crowd were their parents as well. The three arose slowly, their spirits now broken. The silence was deafening. Not one word was spoken. And Kyoko laughed, stood right up and laughed. Loud was the sound as she buckled in half, and she laughed and she laughed and she laughed and she laughed. The parents backed up, not wanting to crowd her, so she raised her hands high and laughed all the louder. Black hair that was done in a tight high-head bun, Kyoko now spinning, her hair came undone. Exuberant spinning, she shouted with glee, "Blind Faith and Blank Page, you must come with me." Both girls ran to her as if it was planned, and as they grew closer, they saw in her hand Kyoko's prize snow globe, the treasure she'd found. She hurled it straight down, and it burst on the ground. Then winds came from nowhere. A blizzard began, a snowstorm terrific. It widened its span. She shouted her name, "Kyoko no Sho!" And over, name shouting would go. "Kyoko no Sho! Kyoko no Sho! My snowstorm will haunt you wherever you go. No Sho, you can't see, you'll never find me. I'm spinning, I'm shouting, Kyoko no Sho! We rise from the earth, from those who gave birth. You'll see us no more, who're of greater worth. Kyoko no Sho! Kyoko no Sho! The snow is my lover who won't let me go. The snow is my lover who won't let me go." The snowstorm ascended, caught up in the clouds, and all that remained were the stunned in the crowds. The laughing, the shouting, the spinning was done. Kyoko no Sho, the humble one, won. What glistening white magic adorned all the lawn? The grounds were snow-covered. The three girls were gone. And so goes the legend of where did they go? Blind Faith, Blank Page, and Kyoko no Sho. Maybe you'll see them in winter's first snow, or maybe they're with you wherever you go. Mummy's only looking for her hand in the snow. Yoko Ono, September 13th, 1969. "Seems to me," the seamstress said. "Seems to me," the seamstress said, as she sewed back on her husband's head, "Victorian couture looks good in red," then slid the scissors beneath her bed. And as her children left for school, she picked up an entrenching tool and chased them, screaming, "Guten Yule!" Then grabbed a can of fossil fuel. The kitchen match ignited hot. She stewed and brewed a steaming pot. Her rocking chair, a comfy spot. A brief recline, but not a lot. The home went up in such a blaze, the smoke descended in a haze. Eyes tightly shut, through flame bouquets, she rocked and thought of better days. Just rocked and thought of better days. Old Bones. Pookie Oldbones was a colored man. He looked every bit as old as the rural hills of Holiday, Kansas, where he lived, and as weathered as the wooden porch of Stanton's General Store, where he rocked in his chair, creaking away seconds, minutes, days. Pookie would sit, hands folded in his lap, waiting for me to bring him his afternoon newspaper. 4 o'clock. I was halfway through my paper route when I delivered the Kansas City Star. As a boy, I'd take my Dr. Pepper break with Pook, sitting on the porch just briefly, listening to him chronicle life. For just a few minutes, the day would stop for the paperboy and Pookie. First, I'd run Mr. and Mrs. Stanton's paper inside their store, business before breaks. I'd toss out an afternoon hello and grab my pop from the trough, filled elbow deep with ice, water, and clinking bottles. 15 cents later, I'd be listening to Pookie talk about Willie Mays, LBJ, and the Civil Rights Movement. Often he would pause mid-sentence and ask me who the prettiest girl in my school was. He'd laugh, showing a few random teeth, and then return to his homily. Another damn Kennedy laid to rest. So sad. Martin Luther King? Have mercy! What crazy-ass man would do that? Lord Jesus! And poor folks. So many tales about poor folks. Holiday was hilly. Brush had grown up, over, and out of control. Shacks and a station wagon doubled as single-family dwellings. They were camouflaged by thick bushes and old trees. The denseness created a fortress for the folks that postured Appalachian-like poverty. And Pookie would relate stories of everyone that dwelled in the hilly tumble. There was O.C., Omer Cox, Old John the farmer and his strapping big son Jumbo, Mr. Kibbe, Mrs. Ross, Posey, and the old drunk. Characters in weathered overalls, seed caps, and flannel passed me by while I was waiting for the paper route truck to pick me back up and take me to my next destination. I never knew where Pookie got the name Pookie. As for Old Bones, Pook used to rock back and forth, metered like a minute hand on a rusty, worn old clock. If you listened carefully, you could hear his reverie. Old bones, wither up and die. Ashes to the ground and wings to the sky.